back in the day, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and we were going to college, and occasionally somebody would roll up a J, and we go, hey, I got a date. I'm going to take this along. Maybe she'll puff a little bit, and just kind of turned on. I'll get lucky. You never know. Maybe I'll get to like first base or something. Ashley Manta. Ashley Manta. You gave us the word CannaSexual. You probably look back at a memory like that and say, "Oh, God, what? Did they have phones back then? Did people have cars? The world has changed in terms of cannabis and sexuality."
The world has changed in many ways, but in a lot of ways it's stayed the same. People have been using cannabis as an aphrodisiac for thousands of years, so I am not bringing anything revolutionary to the table. The difference for me is in my approach.
So we weren't actually just making it up back then. It actually might have done something. I don't think it did, but it might have.
It could have.
Wow, okay. You are known as America's High Priestess of Pleasure. That's quite a title to carry with you. I mean, is it exhausting? Do you driving a car going, I just want to lie on the couch for a while. No more pleasure today.
Do you have a custom license plate?
I do not have a custom license plate. I very seriously considered it, and then somebody pointed out, do you want people to know that? Right. And be able to creepily stalk you?
You'll notice that no custom license plate that says hot babe ever has a hot babe in it.
Never.
It's usually a guy.
Right, it's false advertising. So it's a heavy burden to bear, but no, I'm insatiable. I am a total professional hedonist. I'm a voluptuary. I love pleasure and luxury all day, every day. I masturbate every day. If I could be having sex every day, I would be. There's never a time when I'm like, oh, I have to have sex. No, that doesn't happen. I'm like, yay, I get to have sex again.
You said you're Sicilian. Do you come from a Catholic background?
I do come from a Catholic
background.
Okay,
so where's the guilt?
I've shed it over the years. I kept the schoolgirl skirt though. That works for me.
You're clearly not married then.
I am not married. Never married, no kids. I'm practically a virgin.
That's why you still like sex.
Probably.
You know the difference between Catholic guilt and Jewish guilt.
Tell me.
Catholics feel guilty because they were born. Jews feel guilty because they're alive.
Oh, interesting.
The more you think about it, the more it has depth.
It really does. That works on several levels. My most recent ex is a Jewish man, and I can definitely see the differences in our shame in how we related to each other.
How did you get into this business? Monkey business?
All of those things. I actually started out as a sexual and reproductive health educator early on in my career, and I was a sexual and relationship violence prevention educator back 12 years ago. I wanted to do victim advocacy, rape crisis counseling, really help people with the more difficult sides of being human, dealing with trauma, integrating that into your overall narrative and moving forward with your life. And it was such powerful work. And I burned out, as so many do in that field. And so I decided I really like sexuality, but I want to focus on the more pleasurable side of sexuality. The fun stuff, dirty talk, hand jobs, body confidence, orgasms, lube. And once I started focusing on that, I found so much more opportunity for sustainability long term, because there were always new and interesting facets to look into when it came to sex and sexuality from a joy-focused perspective. And 4 or 5 years ago or so, I started consuming cannabis with a mind for how can I use this to help my trauma healing journey, very intentionally. I'd smoked weed in college. I was a philosophy major, so, of course. And when I moved to California, I had access to medical cannabis. When previously I lived in Pennsylvania, I was in a prohibition state, and only recently did they get a medical program.
Me too.
Nice. Pennsylvania?
Philly.
Oh my God, I went to college and grad school outside of Philly. I was at Westchester and St. Joe's.
Okay.
Yeah. Small world, love that. So when I moved to California, I was still having pain with penetration, which is a very common thing because I myself am a sexual assault survivor. And that's kind of what drew me to that field to begin with. And I found this company called Foria that was making a THC-infused oil for
We've
vulvas.
had Matthew on the show.
Yeah, oh, wonderful. Matthew's such a delight. And so when I found that product back in, 2014, I was able to have penetrative sex without pain for the first time in my adult life. And my mind was blown. This was a game changer for me. And I realized that there were no sex educators that I knew of who were talking about using cannabis to enhance pleasure, talking about consent, talking about trauma, talking about how to negotiate and figure out what are the best products for you. Like, it's not about just getting stoned and boning. Like, that's fine. People can do that, but they don't need me for that. It's a very easy, straightforward task. But if you want to do it well, if you want to maximize your sensory experience and deepen your connection in a very intentional way, that's where I come in.
Sexual problems are rarely spoken of. Do you find, I mean, you have the Elevated Intimacy Academy.
Yes.
You do lectures, you do hands-on, as it were. You're out there in the world of, is it hard to get people to open up?
It is sometimes. People have a lot of shame and are very shut down about their experiences, and especially around their sexuality. But what I've found in my willingness to be vulnerable and transparent very publicly on the internet, in my columns, in my workshops, I share very openly about my experiences. What I've seen is that it gives people permission to do the same. And they're like, oh, she's talking about this stuff. She's having these kinds of experiences. She's, not a supermodel with, like a 6-figure income and 2 kids and married and monogamous, and her life looks pretty cool. Like, maybe my life doesn't have to look a certain way, and maybe I can step into ownership of what works for me. And people seem to be inspired by what I'm up to, which makes me really happy.
I always think of the old Woody Allen line about how unless sex is dirty, there's no pleasure. You've transcended that. Or is it still a little dirty?
I mean, it's dirty if you want it to be. I was a phone sex operator for a year. I love dirty talk, and I love, kinky, naughty role play and that kind of stuff. But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be dirty in the context of shame or like dirty, wrong, bad. It can be like naughty. It can be, ooh, scandalous. And fun and playful, without having the like, oh, I can't do that. Like, that's bad, wrong, can't.
Or as so many of us have heard, the word hurts. It's like, there's a lot of not very subtle signals that let your partner know nothing's working and they're not happy, and can you go away now?
No. I really encourage partners to be more transparent and communicative about those things. If something's not working, to be able to say, hey, partner, I need more lube. I need you to get off my hair. I need a position change. Or I'm feeling complete with this whole thing. I'd like to do something else now. Like, I think it's very reasonable to make those requests, and yet we're so shut down around them. We have this tendency to endure touch and endure sexual experiences, or try to hasten their ending so that we can be done. And I would much rather create a space where, hey, I'm feeling good now. I think I'm ready to be done. What do you need to like close it out? And to just say it. Say the things that you're afraid to say.
Well, I think no one taught us any of this. It's all self-learned or
Yeah.
taught or, in the moment.
Or what really is, it's unmentioned.
Right.
It wasn't unmentionable.
I think nowadays it's more mentioned amongst couples. I think you always hear, or just people, you hear people talking much more openly than they did 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Maybe.
Have you talked to your daughter about it yet?
Don't even go there, honey. Don't even
that
go
look
there.
of panic was really quite classic.
Oh my God.
I was
No.
wondering if we were going to need a medical professional.
No, it's this
Sorry,
is
I didn't-
mommy's
no
job.
disrespect.
Yeah, this is mommy's job. Look, I'm sitting here at the table with Ashley Manta, and I'm looking at what looks like, I don't know, some sort of interesting yarmulke on the table. And this yarmulke turns out to be a purple and purple
Satin embroidered.
satin
Handmade?
Handmade vulva puppet.
I was going to say, you did not get that at the Muppet store.
Nope.
That's not one of the cute little Muppets that would would run around. That is a female sexual organ puppet. From reading your website and your interviews, one of your points is that most women have never seen theirs.
That's real. Most
That's
women
real.
have not seen theirs. Most people with vulvas generally, like it's hard because it's a largely internal. Like people with penises, it's external mostly. With vulvas, it's mostly internal. And so you don't have to like glance right down and see it, especially if you're like me and you got a little bit of a tummy that you have to kind of like move out of the way to be able to see clearly.
I will tell you, there are those guys among us who do not spend their days looking at their organ. So it's I mean, it's
They're
there.
thinking about it.
It's there, but it's not like it's noon. I'll look at my organ for a while.
No, but you see it every time you go to the restroom.
Yeah, unless you close your eyes.
Unless you close your eyes.
So how did it, you were getting to how it began?
Yes.
Did it begin with individual clients? With your consulting with them? Did you immediately go into group? This seems like something that would evolve slowly.
It did evolve slowly. I've always been an educator, so public speaking was really where it started. I was doing workshops for college students and high school students about sexual violence prevention back in 2007, 2008. And from there, it grew into doing more workshops, like I said, that were more kind of fun focused. And coaching actually came later, and I love coaching. What I found when I was teaching in groups is that you kind of have to generalize a lot, because when people are sitting in an audience in front of me, I never want someone to feel like I'm not talking to them. I don't want them to feel left out or othered or otherwise kind of removed from the conversation. And so I speak rather broadly and paint in broad strokes, but because I have a philosophy background, I love nuance. So when I work with couples or individuals, I get to really deep dive on what's going on with them. I can give them very specific suggestions and support around the things that they want to change in their lives.
Like what?
Like, the most important thing you can do is cultivate a regular masturbatory practice so that you know how you want to be touched, you know how these cannabis products work for you and what kinds of physiological changes they cause, and you are able to demonstrate to your partner how to touch you in ways that feel good, and that you feel confident in your ability to bring yourself pleasure so that you're never reliant on someone else.
You know that porn has changed that whole dynamic, right? That you no longer have to go to a nasty little place on 42nd Street and put quarters into a slot to watch 30 seconds of a grainy film. That you now just turn on your iPhone, your laptop, what have you, and there's stuff so gnarly that it's like, it's hard to believe what you're looking at.
But I don't think she considers it gnarly, right?
I don't consider it gnarly. I do. I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to, and I love porn. Like, some of my dearest friends are porn performers, but what is important and what people don't realize is that when you're watching porn, you're essentially watching science fiction. Like, you would not watch The Fast and the Furious to learn how to drive. Right?
Right.
Like, you are watching professionals on a closed course, and if you try to emulate those behaviors in real life, you are going to fall flat on your face, because those folks have a crew. They've got lube tucked behind the pillow. They've had a butt plug in all day. They're not just slamming it in cold. Like, these are professional athletes who have toned and refined their bodies in very specific ways to be appealing on a commercial level. And so when we see porn as education, or we try to mirror that in our own lives, that's when we feel less than and disappointed and, oh God, I can't do that. My penis isn't that big. My pussy doesn't look like that. I need more warm up than that. There must be something wrong with me. I must be broken. Like, no. You would not watch Star Trek and be like, why can't I teleport, God damn it? Like,
That's a great analogy.
It's also I'm getting to understand there's a certain amount of editing that goes on.
oh my God, so much.
And
Yeah.
takes.
So many
Many
takes.
takes.
People with penises, specifically cisgender heterosexual men in porn, have to be able to come on command. I've been on a lot of porn sites. They're like, all right, pop shot time, ready, set, go. And it's just like...
Is it like a meditative thing, you think?
I mean, I'm sure they practice.
Yeah.
You know.
And sometimes if they can't make it happen, they use Cetaphil to fake it.
I was about to say hair, like shampoo or what have you. You know.
Interesting.
Yeah. Everything can be faked. They even have something called fipping, fake internal pop, where like if they can't come, they have it so that they're inside and they like, and act like they're popping. And so it's all an illusion. And if you try to use that as some kind of benchmark for sexual success, you are always going to come up short.
As it were.
As it were.
Yes.
Pun intended.
Okay, so does cannabis have a special impact that nothing else has on sexuality?
I wouldn't say that nothing else has it, because I've had plenty of sex on psychedelics, and that also does a lot of really cool things. But cannabis specifically, I think, addresses the things that often get in the way.
Being drunk, for instance, does not really
Does
help.
not, exactly. No, alcohol and sex do not go well together, and I strongly encourage folks to not have drunk sex. But cannabis addresses the things that get in the way of pleasure, connection, and intimacy. So what are the most common things that get in the way? Pain, anxiety, shame, inhibitions in terms of like the things that you feel like you can't ask for or that you shouldn't ask for or that you don't get to have. And so whatever that thing is that's getting in the way, you can find a cannabis product that can start to help you through that mental block or
Now,
physical.
Are we talking smokables, edibles, or does it not really matter?
It does matter, and it impacts the consumption method you choose and the cannabinoid breakdown of THC and CBD very much impact your experience. So you end up having to kind of find the strain or product and dosage and consumption method that works for the thing that you're trying to address. So for me, pain with penetration, that was not solved from smoking. That was solved by using dysphoria oil on my vulva and letting it marinate, because it really is more like a marinade than a lube. It's not, like, Sliquid is my lube of choice. I use their silicone lube all the time. Love it. Actually brought some for you.
Oh, thank you.
All of you.
Ever
If
so
you'd like to have
wonderful.
some. You know, it's nice to share. But this is not lube like things are dry, I want them to be more slick. This is a pre-lube that you allow time to have the cannabinoids actually absorb into the mucosa of the vulva, which is why it's so much more effective for vulvas than it
And
is
the
for penises.
cannabinoids are doing something cannabinoid-ish.
They are working with your body's endocannabinoid system to heighten pleasure, decrease discomfort, decrease inflammation. THC is a vasodilator, so it's bringing more blood flow to the area, which is something that mimics subjective arousal that you feel in your body. Often, especially with vulvas, you start to feel kind of swollen and full and juicy, and that's lovely. And sometimes the juiciness doesn't even happen. Subjective arousal and wetness are only correlated about 10% of the time in vulva owners, which is why lube is so important. But like, it gets things going in that capacity. But that, smoking a joint doesn't do that for me in the same way. Smoking a joint's great for my head. If I'm stressed,
Not the vajayjay.
not so much for me. And that's not to say for everybody. Some people do find more vulva responsiveness. And so that's why it's so important to masturbate and figure out what works for you. But for me, smoking is head. My anxiety is through the roof, and it helps kind of get that buzzy, intense, oh my God, I can't get out of my head. I can't make these to-do lists turn off. Quiets that down so I can be like, yes, this is nice.
Is there any actual research on this, or is everything anecdotal here?
It's sort of a both and.
Yeah.
There's some research. A lot of it is, even the research is self-reported data, so even that is somewhat anecdotal. There is actually a company called Lioness that's doing some cool stuff. They have a vibrator that has sensors in it that measure pelvic floor contractions. And it feeds that information through a Bluetooth connection to an app on your phone where it will actually
I
track.
was going to say, I bet it goes to the phone.
Sure
oh my
does.
God.
Yep. Better
so
sex through technology. And which is, arguably more effective than trying to get someone to lay completely still in a functional MRI machine while high and masturbating.
Yeah.
Like, it's a little challenging to make that work. And So this device is really a really quite fascinating one to be able to see time to orgasm, the intensity of the orgasms, the space between like peaks, and to be able to actually like look at that in a graph form and be able to compare and contrast. This is when I used this product, this strain, this topical, whatever. And so you can actually physiologically experience the results and then map them out in a graph form, which I'm a fucking nerd, so I love that concept.
That's amazing. Did you try it and do it actually?
I have done it,
Oh,
and
cool.
I've really been quite amazed with the results.
That's astounding.
Now, did you contact the company that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, their CEO is lovely. Her name is Liz, and they're doing some really interesting things. They just actually came out with an insights report where they analyzed both self-reported data from like 400 and some odd survey respondents, and then actual data from 19 people who had the vibrator, who used these various products and reported back their results.
Or they could be like Alexa and just listen in
Right? That would be creepy.
through
Oh,
your
God.
vagina.
It
love it.
strikes me that the parts of America, the parts of the world that would be interested in cannabis and sexuality are the parts of the world, like California, for instance, that are interested first in cannabis, and where sexuality is less of a problematic issue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it may be an individual problem, but it's not something that's as much hidden, behind curtains the way it is out there in other places.
Right.
You know,
Arkansas, let's say.
Well, yeah, I wasn't flyover shaming, but yeah,
But yeah.
yeah, and in places where people are shamed for pretty much everything.
Right, but they do what they're shamed for what they do outwardly, but then they do a bunch of other stuff behind closed doors.
It's true. And really, there are pockets of open-mindedness and pockets of closed-mindedness anywhere you go. Even in California, as largely liberal as this state is, I've still run into plenty of people who are like, this is weird what you're doing. It's weird that you're talking about this. I'm really uncomfortable. I need you to stop. And I honor that. I'm not trying to force this lifestyle or this perspective on anyone. I only want to talk to people who are a hell yes to this. I'm not trying to evangelize anything. Despite
Yeah.
my high priestess moniker.
Well, and in California, we're here in Southern California, so our reputation for being fairly libertine is not always the case, but it does exist. But I do remember not that terribly long ago driving out of Yosemite on a Sunday morning, and there was a traffic jam. As we went through a little town, I go, what's things backed up? And there were guys in white sheets giving out information packets to people passing through. And I go, I'm in California. What the heck?
Right.
What the heck? Oh my God. So it's, our reputation is not universal.
Indeed.
As
And
it were.
you need only drive down Hollywood Boulevard and you see people holding signs with, aborted fetuses on them and screaming about how God hates homosexuals, which is just horrifying. So it's everywhere, and
Well, except the end is near signs. That computes pretty well.
I mean, climate change is real.
Yeah. So do you find companies? You mentioned one company that was doing research here, but are there companies? And you mentioned Foria, of course. Are companies in general? Are they interested in lines of sexually companionable products?
They really are.
Noticing that.
Yes, I'm seeing a crossover in both the cannabis and the sexuality industry, because I spend a lot of time, I got my start as a sex educator, so I spend time with adult manufacturers, toy companies, lube companies, and those kinds of products, and also cannabis brands and manufacturers, and both of them are starting to dip their toes into the other side. They're seeing where the crossover is and where people are very curious and hungry to start to combine these two quote-unquote taboos, and there's a lot of opportunity there. In fact, I'm actually going to be going out to Hedonism in Jamaica in the next few months to do a press tour, and they're going to be opening up like a dispensary on at the resort,
No kidding.
which is so exciting. And I think we're going to see more of that in the future. We're
I
going to
actually
see.
been to hedonism. I was there for spring break in
Oh my
like
God.
college with my girlfriends. We stayed across the street actually. It was kind of funny.
That's
It's an all-inclusive.
Right?
I'm
Yeah.
so excited to
They
go.
don't include the clothes.
Free
do
free
not.
buffet.
Clothes are not included. Everything else is.
Yes.
It was cool though. We were clothed, but we were like in college. It was a totally like voyeuristic experience.
I plan to spend most of those 5 days as naked as possible
I
all the
think,
time.
I think we just went there to eat, to be honest.
That's
Isn't that
reasonable.
funny? Weird.
Uh-huh.
In college, I could see that. I was not quite as sexually adventurous in college as I am now.
I guess.
Meryl keeps getting verklempt. I want to know more about this. The puppet.
The pussy puppet. What would you like to know?
How many iterations have you had? How many versions are there? Do you carry like one in your car? Is one in your purse?
This is the only one I have and the only one I've ever had.
Does she have a name?
She does. Her name is Lilith,
Lilith, yes.
because I'm also a witch. So, Lilith is my girl. They were made by a woman named Dory Lane. It is called the Wondrous Vulva Puppet. And it was actually designed to be a teaching tool. The reason that the outside is in velvet is because the outer labia is where the hair most frequently resides. The inner labia, as you can see with the silky, satiny, is more smooth. Then you have the clitoral hood, the head of the clitoris. You even have the urethra and what would be the G-spot. It's a little bit more forward than most people's, but it's good for visuals. The only thing that it lacks is the internal clit. So I have a necklace that has the internal clit on it, because most people don't realize that the clit, what you see here, is only about 10% of the overall mass of the clit. The rest of it's inside. It is, pound for pound, it has as much erectile tissue as the penis. It's just internal. So it has a shaft that goes back, and then it splits down into two legs that are hugged by these two other structures called vestibular bulbs, that are a cluster of erectile tissue that actually gets an erection. Clits get erections, just like penises get erections, and penises get wet, just like vulvas do. That's what pre-cum is. So it's when we start to realize the amount of similarity between us, instead of treating us like we're from different planets, like it's really useful to look at the places where we're similar.
But it doesn't talk.
It does not talk unless I, do some kind of Juliet child voice with it or something.
She's not a ventriloquist.
I'm not a ventriloquist. It's not one of my
Or
skill
maybe
sets.
she is, and I just wouldn't that be amazing?
I give great dirty talk, but I have to open my mouth.
But so you don't have a matching penis puppet.
I don't have a matching penis puppet, but I do have a rather detailed and largely anatomically correct dildo with testicles that I use as my penis model.
You live an interesting life.
I really do.
That's why I wanted her on the show.
Hi.
I knew it should be informative and fun.
The term CannaSexual,
Yes.
you own it.
I do. I trademarked it federally and everything.
Good for you.
So do you put it on like socks and underwear and what have you?
So
Do you have merch?
I do not have merch
A
yet.
hat? No.
I'm going to be doing some CannaSexual merchandise in the next year. That's kind of one of my plans for 2020.
Well, are you trying to pre-order?
What would you like? A hat, perhaps?
A
Maybe a
yarmulke.
yarmulke? I was just thinking.
We're talking about a yarmulke.
A CannaSexual yarmulke would be
Oh my
pretty
God.
rad.
Would you wear a vulva on your head? Or you would just drive one?
A friend bet me the other day that that Orthodox Jewish pornography did not exist. And to our shock, we discovered it actually does.
I bet you they're the dirtiest.
Does not
It's
surprise
not.
me at all.
There's not much of it, and it's mostly lesbian. But it's like, oh my God, this is completely.
Oh, that's what you do in
This
your
is
free time.
it's completely. Well, it was it was an intellectual discussion. Thank you.
That's amazing.
But it was pretty shocking. It was, what can I tell you? Having watched the Israeli ultra-Orthodox soap opera called Shtisel, the whole mating process consists of meeting for a cup of tea with everyone having chaperones around them, and you don't even shake hands. There's absolutely nothing. You're opening up a world here, Ashley. You're
you.
wonderful. You can be found at cannasexual.com.
Yes, you can also
Instagram,
find me on
CannaSexual.
Instagram at CannaSexual or on Twitter at Ashley Manta.
It is a world of. It's
And
a world that perhaps only you have explored so far. You may own this one.
And so if couples want to consult from you, what's the best way? Your website?
The best way is through my website. You'll see on my website I have a thing called Elite Coaching, and it's about sexual self-mastery. And I love working with both individuals and couples, but especially couples. And it's just fun for me. And it's virtual. It's all through Skype and FaceTime, so it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can still work with me.
Oh, so you don't have to show up at your
do not.
at your house.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yes, and much cooler. Ashley Manta, thank you so much. CannaSexual, the America's High Priestess of Pleasure. It is an honor. It's Meryl Schindler. It's Joanna Belson. It's Phil Giangrande. Thank you, guys. Can we stop having our red face?